Greetings from the Jewelry Art Studio. So today we're back to tubing. We've got our pre-curved little blank, and now we're going to start pulling it through a wood draw plate to get the seam to come together in preparation for fusing. I'm smiling, but you can't tell. So we have our cute little tubing blank, pre-curved a little bit, like you see right here, and it's been annealed. So we're going to start pulling it through a wood draw plate. Normally you start with wood because it is a million times cheaper to get a wood draw plate with big holes in it. If you tried to get a steel draw plate like this, it would cost you like $1 billion. So these are draw plates we use for pulling tubing. The two on the left, the wood draw plates, that's what I usually use to pull my tube together to get the seam to touch. And then after it's been fused or soldered shut, I pull it through the steel draw plates to make the seam disappear and to make it longer and thinner. The steel ones especially are a little pricey, so this isn't something I necessarily recommend you go right out and buy yourself unless you really think you're going to be making a decent amount of tubing. As it is, they're expensive, but so literally I'm going to put this through the first hole, and I can grab it with my pliers and pull it through. Just to kind of get it going. And once it gets a little smaller, I'm going to take my tongs and really crush that draw dog together. But for the moment, these are really big holes, so I can just kind of do that. But you see how it starts to come together? Because basically, we pull it through the draw plate both before and after fusing. So before is to get it almost all the way together, and then I'll show you how to take a dowel to kind of finish it up and get it really tight. And then after we fuse it, we pull again to get rid of the seam and get it closer to the shape that you want, or the size, I should say, that you want. So let me flip this around. Although, that's a very big jump from hole to hole there when it gets to the smaller one. So I'm going to move to this wood draw plate, which is a little bit better. Now this is fine silver, so you can see this does not take an enormous amount of force to really get it through there. And now that it's getting smaller, I'll probably take that and kind of crush it a little bit more so that I have a little more to hold on to.
I want to see it.
Now if this were a harder metal, I would be stopping and annealing already, but since it's fine silver, I'm just kind of being naughty and plowing ahead because it's pretty easy to shape. And basically, you want to go through the wood draw plate until it's touching somewhere. It's not going to be perfectly closed because you'll do the rest by hand, but basically once it's touching at least in one spot or very close, you want to stop, because if you just keep pulling and pulling, it'll just get longer and longer, and the seam won't come together any closer, and you may end up with tubing too small. So just keep an eye on that. And as you go smaller and smaller, you find you need to kind of like crush the draw dog, you know what I mean, more and more so that you can get a hold of it.
No, the adjustment is pretty...
All right, so even though it's fine silver, it has begun to fight back. So I'm going to pause and I'm going to anneal, and then we'll come back, okay? Oh, and here, why don't you do a little close-up of this just to see. Hold on one sec. I don't know if you can see that. I'll hold it. So you see how it's not really touching yet, I don't think, but maybe almost. I'll probably pull it through maybe one more hole, and then we'll fuse, okay? So I'm going to go anneal. So I'm going to find where I was, which is somewhere here on Earth planet. I think that's the last one I can go through. And I can, since this is so little and fine silver, I'm just using my regular chain nose pliers, but you know, for bigger, thicker things, you definitely go to the tongs. These are the ones from Germany. They have the deeper teeth, and those are the ones that really hold on. And even though we have a whole bucket of them, and all of these are from India, The one from Germany is the one that I always grab. No offense to Pakistan, but okay, so I think this is the last hole that I can really pull it through, because you see how it's starting to touch right here. So I'll probably anneal it again, or maybe I don't even need to bother. So like it's starting to overlap a little bit, so I'm going to open that up just a tiny bit, and then I'm going to put a smaller dowel in here, and I'll show you how I finish the rest of it using the zipper method, which Alexis coined, who's filming this right now. So you can see we have it not quite together, but almost. Now this is usually the point where I stop pulling and I do the last little bit by hand, because it's very easy to kind of get carried away with the draw plate and then it'll start to overlap. So what I did was I found a rod, it could be a wood dowel or this is steel, that fits in but is a little smaller, you know, so there's a little room in there. Because basically I'm giving myself room that when I press this in, it has room to move. Now, my very, very clever Alexis, the apprentice, who is filming this right now, who I will tag in the video, I showed her this method last week or the week before, and she's like, oh, it closes just like a zipper, which was genius. So it is now hereby christened the zipper method. I know a lot of people like to use burnishers for this, but I find a wood dowel doesn't slip as much. And also the shiny edge that you get from a burnisher can be a little confusing to the eye. Like it gets shiny, and sometimes I feel like it's a little harder to see whether it's actually touching or not. So I just use a wood dowel, but whatever makes you happy. So we're gonna close this the exact same way, actually, that the draw plate is gonna close it, because we're gonna start from the top, and I'm going to stroke my dowel down to press it closer together here, and then I'm gonna do the same thing on the right side. So I'm gonna kind of in a Y shape, just like you close a zipper, okay? So I rest it right here. It's also in my hands. I don't want to sit it on a flat surface. I don't want to get any little dings or whatever in there. If you don't want to hold it in your hand, you could always just like fold up a paper towel or something. So I'm going to put this right here, and I'm going to run it down. And you see how it kind of just tightens up? And then I'll do the same thing on the other side. And it closes up just like a zipper. Okay, now of course I'm going to hold this up to a light source, you know, and see if I can see any light shining through, which is very difficult for me to film. But basically, you take your tube, you hold it up to a light source and look through it. And if you see light shining through the seam, you just need to give it a little more love. But basically, once I'm happy and satisfied with how this looks, then we're going to fuse it together.